Tucker got a promotion last month, making $150K at his finance job, and my parents threw him this massive birthday party at their house. I knew it was going to be rough, but nothing prepared me for what happened. Let me give you some context first, because this didn't happen in a vacuum. I'm 30. Tucker is 28. And my parents, Otis and Anita, have always made it crystal clear who their favorite is. Tucker went to business school. I went to community college and work in IT support. Tucker drives a BMW. I drive a 2018 Honda. Tucker bought a house at 26. I rent an apartment. You get the picture. The thing is, I've actually been doing really well lately. Got a new job 6 months ago doing network security consulting that pays decent money. Started taking online courses in cybersecurity. I've been working out, eating better, generally getting my life together. But my family has this image of me as the screw-up little brother, and they refuse to let it go. So, Saturday night rolls around and I show up to Tucker's party with a gift. I actually put thought into. He mentioned months ago wanting this specific vintage watch from the 1980s that belonged to our grandfather. I spent weeks tracking one down online. Had it restored, got it authenticated. Cost me almost $800, but whatever. He's my brother. The party was already in full swing when I got there. About 30 people, mostly Tucker's work friends and college buddies, plus extended family. I walked in and immediately felt that familiar tension. You know when a room goes just slightly quieter when you enter? That happened. I found Tucker by the bar and handed him the gift. He opened it and I could see he was genuinely surprised and pleased for about 5 seconds. Then Dad walked over with his scotch in hand and saw what was happening. Dad raised his glass and announced to the entire room that they should toast his only son worth acknowledging. He said I was living proof that contraception should have been mandatory. The whole room went dead silent for a moment. Then some people started laughing nervously. Tucker looked uncomfortable, but instead of shutting Dad down, he grabbed my gift and made some comment about what garbage did I wrap up this time. Was it from the dollar store clearance section? More laughter from his work friends. Then Mom chimed in. She told everyone loudly to hide their wallets because the family leech had arrived and would probably be asking for gas money soon. My Aunt Jean added that 30 years old and still a worthless nobody was quite an accomplishment. Uncle Dale said, "At least parasites serve a purpose. This one just consumes." The room erupted in laughter. Not nervous laughter anymore. Full-on vicious amusement at my expense. These people were enjoying watching my family tear me apart publicly. Here's what really hit me though. I had spent years preparing for moments like this. Not preparing to fight back or cause drama, but preparing to prove them wrong. Every promotion I got, every skill I learned, every improvement I made to my life was partly motivated by this desperate need to show them I wasn't who they said I was. Standing there listening to 30 people laugh at jokes about what a failure I am. Something clicked. I realized I had been playing their game this entire time, trying to earn respect from people who had decided years ago that I didn't deserve it. Chasing approval from family members who got entertainment value from putting me down. I just smiled, told Tucker happy birthday and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't make a scene. Didn't try to defend myself. Just left. But here's where this story gets interesting. When I got home that night, I made a decision that's been years in the making. I'm done trying to prove anything to these people. I'm done showing up to family events where I'm treated like entertainment. I'm done accepting phone calls where I get lectured about my life choices. I'm done pretending we have a normal family relationship. I've been working towards something for months now that they don't know about. See all those online courses I mentioned? I've been building towards starting my own cybersecurity consulting firm. I've got 3 potential clients already lined up, including one major contract that would basically set me up for the year. I was planning to tell my family about it once everything was finalized. Not anymore. I spent Sunday moving money around, setting up business accounts, filing paperwork. By Monday morning, I had officially launched my company. By Tuesday, I had signed my first major client, a mid-size manufacturing company that needs a complete security overhaul. The crazy part is how much clearer my thinking became once I stopped caring about their approval. Decisions that I had been second-guessing for months suddenly seemed obvious. Professional opportunities one had been hesitant about suddenly felt manageable. Wednesday night, my phone started ringing. Mom wanted to know why I hadn't returned any of her texts. I told her I was busy with work. She asked when I was coming for Sunday dinner this week. I said I wouldn't be coming anymore. That's when she realized something had changed. She started asking questions about what was wrong. Why was I being so sensitive? It was just family teasing. Tucker didn't mean anything by it. I told her I wasn't upset or hurt or sensitive. I was just done participating in family events where I'm treated like a joke. The conversation went exactly how you'd expect. She got defensive, then angry, then started the guilt trip about how I was tearing the family apart over nothing, how I was being dramatic and immature, how family is supposed to stick together through everything. I stayed calm and just kept repeating the same thing. I'm not angry. I'm not trying to punish anyone. I'm just choosing not to put myself in situations where I'm disrespected. Simple as that. Thursday morning, Tucker called. This was interesting because Tucker almost never calls me directly. He wanted to know what Mom was upset about and why I was apparently refusing to come to family dinners anymore. I explained what happened from my perspective. He said I was overreacting to some harmless jokes and that everyone was just having fun. I asked him if he would tolerate his work colleagues talking about him the way his family talks about me. He said that was different. I told him it wasn't different. Respect is respect. If you wouldn't accept certain treatment from strangers, why would you accept it from family? He got frustrated and said I was being too sensitive and that this was just how our family communicated. I said, okay, then this is how I communicate by not participating. The phone calls have been escalating since then. Dad left me a voicemail yesterday saying I was being childish and needed to get over myself. Aunt Jean sent me a text about how I was hurting Mom's feelings. Various family members have been reaching out asking what's going on. Here's the thing that's really getting to them. I'm not fighting back or arguing or trying to defend my position. I'm just calmly stating my boundaries and sticking to them. I think they're used to me either taking the abuse quietly or getting emotional and defensive. This new approach where I'm just completely detached from their drama is throwing them off. My business is doing better than I expected. Turns out when you're not constantly distracted by family dysfunction, you can focus on actually building something. I've got 2 more client meetings next week and I'm feeling more confident about this whole entrepreneurship thing than I ever have. The ironic part is that for years I thought I needed their support and approval to succeed. Turns out what I actually needed was to stop caring about their opinions entirely. I know this is just the beginning. They're going to escalate the pressure, probably try different tactics to get me back in line, but for the first time in my adult life, I feel like I'm operating from a position of strength instead of constantly trying to prove myself. Anyone else ever had to completely restructure their relationship with their family? Because I have a feeling this is about to get a lot more complicated. Update 1. Thanks for all the support, Hidden Lies. This week has been absolutely wild and I needed to update you all because honestly, I don't think anyone could have predicted how this would escalate. So, remember how I said I was done participating in family events where I get treated like garbage? Well, my family decided to test exactly how serious I was about that. Sunday rolls around and my phone starts blowing up around noon. Mom texting asking where I am for dinner. I remind her that I already told her I wouldn't be coming anymore. She responds that she made my favorite dessert and I'm being ridiculous. I don't reply. Then Dad starts calling. I let it go to voicemail. He leaves this message about how I'm disappointing my mother and need to stop this childish behavior immediately. Still don't respond. Tucker texts me around 3 asking if I'm really going to skip family dinner over some stupid joke. I text back that it wasn't just one joke. It was years of being treated like the family failure for entertainment. He responds that I'm being way too sensitive and everyone thinks I'm overreacting. Here's where it gets interesting. Instead of getting defensive like I always used to, I screenshot his text and save it. Not for any dramatic revenge plot, just because I'm starting to document exactly how my family responds when I set boundaries. It's been eye-opening. Monday morning, I'm at my first client meeting for my consulting business. Remember that manufacturing company I mentioned? We're sitting in their conference room going over their security assessment, and I'm feeling more confident than I have in years. The meeting goes incredibly well, and they want to expand the project scope. I'm driving home feeling great about how things are developing professionally when Mom calls. I answer because I figure maybe she's ready to actually discuss this like adults. Nope. She immediately starts in about how I ruined Sunday dinner, how everyone was asking where I was, how embarrassed she was to have to explain that her son was throwing a tantrum. I stay calm and explain again that I'm not throwing a tantrum. I'm just choosing not to put myself in situations where I'm disrespected. She says that's not what happened at Tucker's party. According to her, everyone was just teasing me affectionately, and I completely misunderstood the situation. She tells me that Dad was just being playful when he made that toast about contraception and Tucker was just joking around about the gift. I ask her if she would describe being called living proof that contraception should be mandatory as affectionate teasing. She says I'm twisting what happened and that my memory is wrong. This is when I realize something crucial. My family has been gaslighting me about their treatment of me for so long that they genuinely believe their own version of events. They've convinced themselves that humiliating me publicly was just harmless fun. I tell Mom that we clearly remember the evening very differently, and that's fine. But my decision stands. She gets frustrated and says I'm tearing the family apart over nothing. I point out that if my presence was so unimportant that they could mock me in front of 30 people, then my absence shouldn't be a big deal either. She hangs up on me. Tuesday, I get a call from Aunt Jean. This is where things start getting really manipulative. Jean tells me that Mom has been crying all week and that I'm breaking her heart. She says family is supposed to forgive each other and that I'm being cruel by holding grudges. I explain to Jean exactly what happened at the party since apparently the story has been getting revised in the retelling. Jean admits she heard the whole thing, but insists that everyone was just trying to be funny. She says I've always been too serious and can't take a joke. I asked Jean if her coworkers called her a worthless nobody at her office party. Would she consider that funny? She says that's different because we're family. I ask her to explain how being related to someone makes public humiliation acceptable. She can't answer that. The conversation goes in circles for 20 minutes with Jean trying different approaches. She tries guilt about Mom's feelings, then suggests maybe I misunderstood the tone, then implies that I'm being oversensitive because of work stress. Nothing works because I just keep coming back to the same simple point. I don't accept being treated disrespectfully regardless of who's doing it. Wednesday evening, Tucker shows up at my apartment unannounced. This is actually significant because Tucker has never come to my place before. He usually expects me to come to him when we hang out. He walks in and immediately starts talking about how I'm causing unnecessary drama and need to just get over what happened. I offer him coffee and we sit down in my living room. I decide to try a different approach with him. I ask Tucker why he thinks our parents treat us so differently. He gets uncomfortable and says they don't treat us differently. They just have different expectations. I point out that when he was struggling in college, they paid for tutoring and never criticized him publicly. When I struggled, they used it as evidence that I was a disappointment. Tucker gets defensive and says his situation was different because he was working towards something important. I ask him what makes his goals more important than mine. He says business school and finance are more prestigious than at work. And there it is. The real reason my family treats me like garbage. They're embarrassed by what I do for a living. They think Tucker's career makes him inherently more valuable as a person. I tell Tucker that I've actually been building my own cybersecurity consulting business and that it's going really well. He looks surprised and asks why I never mentioned it before. I explain that I've learned not to share good news with family because it usually gets dismissed or minimized. Tucker insists that's not true, but then immediately asks if consulting is really stable long-term and whether I have enough experience to run my own business. He's literally proving my point while denying it. I stay calm and just say that I'm confident in my abilities and the business is growing steadily. He shifts tactics and starts talking about how I'm hurting Mom and Dad by being stubborn. He says they're worried about me and just want me to be part of the family. I ask Tucker what part of the family I've been playing exactly. He can't answer that either. The conversation goes on for almost 2 hours with Tucker trying every angle he can think of to convince me to back down. He alternates between guilt trips, logical arguments about family loyalty, and subtle implications that I'm being irrational, but every approach hits the same wall. I'm not budging on my boundaries. Finally, Tucker gets frustrated and asks what it's going to take for me to get over this. I tell him it would take the family acknowledging that the way they treated me was wrong and committing to treating me with basic respect going forward. Tucker says that's never going to happen because they don't think they did anything wrong. I say, okay, then I guess we know where everyone stands. He leaves looking confused and angry. I think this was the first time Tucker has ever had a conversation with me where I didn't eventually give in to pressure. Thursday, my business lands another client, a small law firm that needs their entire network secured. Between this and the manufacturing company, I'm going to be making more money than I ever have in my life. Friday, I get a group text from Mom to me, Tucker, and several extended family members about plans for Dad's birthday next month. Everyone's expected to contribute $50 for the party and help with setup. I don't respond to the group text. Instead, I text Mom privately that I won't be attending Dad's birthday party and won't be contributing money for it. She immediately calls me screaming about how I'm being petty and vindictive. She says I'm punishing Dad for something Tucker did. I calmly explain that Dad was the one who made the toast about contraception being mandatory, so I'm not punishing him for Tucker's behavior. Mom says Dad was drunk and didn't mean it. I ask her why being drunk makes it acceptable to humiliate your child in public. She says I'm being impossible and that normal people don't hold grudges like this. I tell Mom that avoiding situations where you get treated badly isn't holding a grudge. It's having self-respect. She hangs up again. The weekend has been peaceful. No family contact, just me working on client projects and actually enjoying my free time. It's amazing how much mental energy gets freed up when you stop trying to manage other people's emotions and reactions. But I have a feeling this is about to get much more intense. Mom's group text about Dad's birthday tells me they're not planning to adjust their behavior at all. They're expecting me to just show up and pretend nothing happened. That's not going to work. I've been thinking about what comes next. And I realize I have more leverage in this situation than I originally thought. See, I've been the family scapegoat for so long that everyone is used to having me around to deflect attention from their own issues. Without me there to absorb criticism and blame, they're going to have to actually deal with their own dynamics. This should be interesting. Anyone else dealt with family members who refuse to acknowledge they've done anything wrong? Because I have a feeling the real test is still coming. Update 2: Hidden Lies. The last 2 weeks have been absolutely insane, and I need to get this all out because honestly, I don't think I could have predicted how far my family would go to try to break my boundaries. So, Dad's birthday was last Saturday, and remember how I said I wasn't attending and wouldn't contribute money? Well, that decision ended up revealing way more about my family dynamics than I expected. The week leading up to the party was constant pressure from every direction. Mom called me 3 times asking me to reconsider. Tucker sent me long texts about how I was ruining Dad's special day. Aunt Jean left voicemails about family loyalty. Uncle Dale even reached out, which never happens, telling me I was being selfish. But here's what really got to me. Every single conversation followed the exact same pattern. They would start by trying to guilt me about hurting Dad's feelings, then move to minimizing what happened at Tucker's party, then end with implications that I was being irrational or oversensitive. Not one person acknowledged that publicly humiliating me might have been wrong. The breakthrough moment came Wednesday when I was having lunch with my neighbor Carter. He's this older guy who's been running his own business for 20 years, and we sometimes talk about work stuff. I mentioned dealing with some family pressure about attending an event where I'd been disrespected before. Carter asked me a simple question that changed everything. He said, if a client treated me the way my family treats me, would I keep working with them? Obviously not. Then he asked why I thought family relationships should have lower standards than business relationships. That conversation crystallized something I'd been feeling but couldn't articulate. I've been giving my family permissions to treat me in ways I would never accept from anyone else just because we share DNA. Thursday, I made a decision that I'd been considering for months, but never had the courage to follow through on. I sent a group text to my immediate family, Mom, Dad, and Tucker. I told them that I was taking a break from family relationships until everyone was ready to treat me with basic respect and acknowledge that the way I've been treated is unacceptable. I specifically outlined what happened at Tucker's party in detail. Since the story kept getting revised and retelling, I mentioned Dad's contraception comment, Tucker's dollar store garbage remark, Mom's family leech announcement, and how 30 people laughed at my expense. I said that until they could acknowledge this was wrong and commit to treating me differently, I wouldn't be participating in family events or regular contact. My phone exploded within minutes. Dad called me screaming about how I was being ridiculous and dramatic. He said the party was just family fun and that I was taking everything too seriously. When I asked him if he would want his coworkers to hear his boss make contraception jokes about him, he said that was completely different because family can say things to each other that outsiders can't. I asked Dad why being related to someone gives them permission to humiliate you publicly. He couldn't answer that. So he shifted to saying I was tearing the family apart and breaking Mom's heart. I stayed calm and told him that setting boundaries isn't tearing anything apart. It's just establishing what treatment I will and won't accept. The conversation went in circles for 40 minutes with Dad getting increasingly frustrated that his usual tactics weren't working. He finally hung up on me when I asked him point blank if he thought calling his son living proof that contraception should be mandatory was loving behavior. Mom called 2 hours later crying. This was different from her previous calls because she seemed genuinely upset rather than just angry. She said she never meant to hurt my feelings and that the whole family was just trying to have fun at the party. I told Mom that intention doesn't erase impact, even if she meant the family leech comment as a joke. It still hurt and humiliated me in front of strangers. She said she never thought about how it might feel from my perspective and that she was sorry if I misunderstood. Notice she said sorry if I misunderstood, not sorry that she said it. I pointed out the difference. Mom got defensive and said she was trying to apologize, but I wasn't letting her. I explained that acknowledging what you did wrong is different from apologizing for someone else's reaction to what you did. That conversation lasted over an hour with Mom cycling through different approaches. She tried genuine emotion, logical arguments about family forgiveness, and subtle guilt trips about how this was affecting Dad, but I maintained the same position throughout. I need acknowledgement that the treatment was wrong and commitment to change, not just apologies for my reaction to it. Tucker's response was the most revealing. He sent me a series of texts saying I was being manipulative and controlling by making demands before I'd participate in family events. He said I was holding the family hostage with my ultimatums and that everyone was walking on eggshells wondering what would set me off next. I responded that boundaries aren't ultimatums. They're just statements about what treatment I will accept. I wasn't demanding that anyone change their behavior, just that I wouldn't be around if they chose to continue treating me disrespectfully. Tucker texted back that I was acting like I'm better than everyone else now that my business is doing well. And there it was, the real issue. Tucker is threatened by my success because it challenges the family narrative that he's the accomplished one and I'm the failure. I didn't respond to that text because honestly, it proved my point better than anything I could have said. Saturday came and I spent Dad's birthday working on client projects and actually enjoying my weekend. My business is growing faster than I expected. I've now got 4 steady clients and 2 more interested in signing contracts. I'm making more money than I ever have and feeling more confident professionally than ever. Meanwhile, my phone was buzzing all day with family drama. Apparently, the birthday party was tense and awkward without me there to absorb all the negative energy. Several family members kept asking where I was, and Mom had to keep explaining that I was boycotting family events. Uncle Dale texted me Sunday saying the party felt weird without me there and asking when I was going to stop this foolishness. I texted back that it wasn't foolishness, it was self-respect, and that I'd be happy to rejoin family events when everyone was ready to treat me with basic dignity. Monday brought the nuclear option. Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced around 6 p.m. looking exhausted and upset. She said she'd been thinking all weekend about our conversation and wanted to talk more. I let her in and made coffee, thinking maybe we were finally going to have a real conversation about this. Mom sat on my couch and started crying, saying she never realized how much her comments at the party hurt me. She said she was raised in a family where everyone teased each other and she thought that's just how families communicate. For a moment, I thought we were making progress. Then, Mom said she understood why I was upset, but asked if I could forgive everyone and come back to Sunday dinners while we work through this as a family. I asked Mom what specifically she was apologizing for. She said she was sorry that her teasing went too far and hurt my feelings. I asked her to be more specific about what she said that was wrong. Mom got uncomfortable and said she didn't remember her exact words, but that she was sorry for whatever she said that upset me. I reminded her that she called me the family leech in front of 30 people and told everyone to hide their wallets. Mom's demeanor completely changed. She said those were just throwaway comments and that I was making too big a deal out of casual remarks. She said normal people don't analyze every family interaction looking for reasons to be offended. And just like that, we were back to the same pattern. She wasn't actually acknowledging that her behavior was wrong. She was apologizing for my reaction to it while simultaneously defending the behavior. I told Mom that I appreciated her coming over, but that this conversation proved exactly why I need distance right now. The family wants me to come back and pretend nothing happened without anyone actually taking responsibility for what they did. Mom got frustrated and said I was being impossible and that families are supposed to forgive each other unconditionally. I asked her why forgiveness only goes one direction. Why is it my job to forgive disrespectful treatment but not their job to acknowledge they were disrespectful? She left without answering that question. Tuesday, I got a call from Tucker that revealed just how desperate they're getting. He said the whole family is worried about me and thinks I might be having some kind of breakdown or crisis. He suggested I might benefit from talking to someone professional about why I'm having such extreme reactions to normal family interactions. I asked Tucker if he genuinely believes that publicly mocking your brother in front of 30 people constitutes normal family interaction. He said yes. That's just how families tease each other and that most people understand the difference between jokes and serious insults. Tucker then said something that really showed his hand. He told me that I've changed since I started my business and that success seems to be going to my head. He said, I'm acting like I'm too good for the family now that I'm making decent money. I realized that Tucker has built his entire identity around being the successful brother and my business success threatens that dynamic. The family scapegoat isn't supposed to outgrow the role. I told Tucker that I haven't changed. I've just stopped accepting disrespectful treatment. He said that's the same thing as changing and that the old me would have understood it was just family fun. That's right. The old me would have swallowed the humiliation, showed up to Dad's birthday with a smile, and pretended everything was fine. The old me was so desperate for family approval that I accepted whatever scraps of acceptance they threw my way. But I'm not that person anymore, and they're struggling to adjust to someone who won't play the family scapegoat role. The ironic part is that my business is thriving precisely because I'm not wasting mental energy on managing their emotions and reactions. When you stop trying to convince people who don't respect you to treat you better, you free up enormous amounts of headspace for actually productive activities. I've got 2 more client meetings scheduled this week, and I'm considering hiring my first employee. Meanwhile, my family is apparently falling apart because their emotional punching bag isn't available anymore. Anyone else experienced family members getting more manipulative when you start setting boundaries? Because I have a feeling they're not done trying to break me down yet. Final update. 6 months later. My family finally showed me who they really are. You're true off my chest. Posted 6 months ago. It's been 6 months since I went no contact with my family, and I wanted to give you all a final update because this story has a conclusion that I think you'll find as eye-opening as I did. First, the good news. My cybersecurity consulting business has absolutely exploded. I now have 12 steady clients, hired 2 full-time employees, and I'm looking at office space because working from my apartment isn't cutting it anymore. I'm making more money than Tucker ever has, which feels surreal considering how the family always positioned him as the successful one. The confidence that came from setting boundaries with my family translated directly into my professional life. When you stop accepting disrespect from people who claim to love you, you definitely don't accept it from business contacts. I've been able to negotiate better contracts, set firmer boundaries with demanding clients, and generally operate from a position of strength rather than constantly trying to prove myself. But the real story here is what happened with my family when they realized I wasn't coming back. About 3 months ago, I got a text from Tucker that was different from his previous attempts to guilt me into returning. He said Mom and Dad were having serious marriage problems and that the stress of our family rift was making everything worse. He asked if I would at least consider talking to Mom because she was really struggling. My first instinct was the old familiar guilt. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I should just swallow my pride and help the family through a difficult time. But then I remembered something my neighbor Carter had said, that healthy people don't use crisis to manipulate others into accepting bad treatment. I texted Tucker back asking what specifically had changed about how the family was willing to treat me. Did they acknowledge that publicly humiliating me was wrong? Were they committed to treating me with basic respect going forward? Tucker's response was telling. He said this wasn't the time to relitigate old grievances because we had bigger problems now. So, even in crisis, the family position remained that my expectations of respectful treatment were unreasonable grievances that should be set aside for their convenience. I didn't respond to Tucker's text. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Uncle Dale that revealed just how desperate things had gotten. Dale told me that Mom had been crying constantly and that Dad was drinking more than usual. He said several family members were concerned about both of them and thought maybe if I just came to one family dinner, it might help everyone start healing. I asked Dale if anyone in the family had acknowledged that humiliating me publicly was wrong. He said that wasn't really the point anymore because we needed to focus on moving forward as a family. I asked him how we could move forward without acknowledging what went wrong in the first place. Dale got frustrated and said I was being stubborn and holding grudges. He told me that families forgive each other and that I was causing more damage by staying away than anyone had caused me at Tucker's party. I explained to Dale that I wasn't holding grudges. I was maintaining boundaries. If they wanted to have a relationship with me, they needed to acknowledge their behavior was wrong and commit to treating me differently. If they couldn't do that, then we simply couldn't have a relationship. Dale said I was asking too much and that no family operates with those kinds of conditions. I told him that healthy families don't need those conditions because they naturally treat each other with respect. The conversation ended with Dale telling me I was tearing the family apart and that I'd regret this when Mom and Dad were gone. I stayed calm and pointed out that they were perfectly capable of rebuilding a relationship with me at any time by simply acknowledging their behavior and committing to change. Last month, the nuclear option finally came. Mom showed up at my office unannounced, which was alarming because I'd never told any of them my business address. She'd apparently gotten it from some family friend who knew someone who worked in my building. Mom looked terrible. She'd lost weight and seemed genuinely distraught. She said she'd been thinking about our relationship for months and realized that maybe she hadn't been fair to me over the years. She said she wanted to understand what I needed from her to fix this. For a moment, I thought we might finally be getting somewhere. Then Mom said she was willing to admit that maybe some of the teasing had gone too far, and she was sorry if her comments at Tucker's party hurt my feelings more than she intended. Notice the language. Sorry if her comments hurt my feelings more than she intended. Still not taking responsibility for what she said, just apologizing for my reaction being stronger than expected. I asked Mom if she could specifically acknowledge what she said that was wrong. She repeated that maybe the teasing went too far. I asked her to be specific about her own words and actions. Mom said she didn't remember exactly what she said because it was months ago, but that she was sorry for whatever came across as hurtful. I reminded her that she called me the family leech and told 30 people to hide their wallets. Mom's entire demeanor shifted. She said I was being ridiculous to obsess over throwaway comments that weren't meant seriously. She said she'd come to apologize and I was throwing it back in her face by demanding she gravel for casual remarks that any normal person would have forgotten by now. And there it was 6 months later. After all the family drama and crisis, Mom still couldn't acknowledge that publicly calling your son a leech is wrong. She wanted credit for apologizing while simultaneously defending the behavior she was supposedly apologizing for. I told Mom that I appreciated her coming to talk, but this conversation proved exactly why I needed distance. She wasn't actually sorry for what she did. She was sorry that my reaction to it caused family problems. Mom started crying and said I was being impossible and that she'd tried everything she could think of to fix this. I gently pointed out that the one thing she hadn't tried was actually acknowledging her behavior and committing to change it. She left my office saying I was stubborn and ungrateful and that she was done trying to rebuild a relationship with someone who didn't want to be part of the family. That was the last direct contact I had with any of them. But the story doesn't end there. 3 weeks ago, I hired Amanda as my new office manager. Amanda happens to live in the same neighborhood where I grew up, and she mentioned that she'd heard my name around the area recently. Apparently, my family has been telling people that I've had some kind of breakdown or mental health crisis that's caused me to cut off contact with them. They're presenting themselves as the victims of my irrational behavior and garnering sympathy from the community. Amanda said people have been asking her if I seem unstable at work since apparently the family narrative is that success went to my head and I started making unreasonable demands on people who love me. This actually doesn't surprise me. Rather than admit they treated me badly, they're rewriting the story to make me the problem. It's easier to tell people your son is having a mental health crisis than to admit you publicly humiliated him and refused to acknowledge it was wrong. The beautiful irony is that while they're telling people I've lost my mind, I'm running a successful business, maintaining healthy relationships, and generally thriving in ways I never did when I was trying to earn their approval. I've thought a lot about whether I have any regrets about how this played out. The honest answer is no. I gave my family multiple opportunities to acknowledge their behavior and commit to treating me with basic respect. They chose defending their right to humiliate me over maintaining a relationship with me. That choice reveals everything I needed to know about their priorities. The sad truth is that some families are just toxic and no amount of boundary setting or communication will change that. Some people are so invested in their dysfunctional dynamics that they'll sacrifice relationships rather than admit they were wrong. My family needed a scapegoat to absorb their negativity and dysfunction. When I stopped playing that role, the whole system started falling apart. Rather than examine why they needed a scapegoat in the first place, they decided the problem was me refusing to accept the role. I've built a life now where I'm surrounded by people who treat me with respect, where my professional success is celebrated rather than minimized, and where I don't have to constantly defend my worth as a person. The contrast with my family dynamics is stark. To anyone reading this who's dealing with similar family toxicity, you are not required to maintain relationships with people who consistently disrespect you, even if they're family. You are not obligated to accept bad treatment because someone claims to love you. You have the right to expect basic human dignity from everyone in your life. Setting boundaries will reveal who truly cares about your well-being versus who just wants you to play whatever role makes them comfortable. The people who fight your boundaries instead of respecting them are telling you everything you need to know about their priorities. My family chose their dysfunction over their relationship with me. That was their choice to make, and I'm at peace with the consequences. 6 months ago, I was their designated failure. Today, I'm a successful business owner with healthy relationships and genuine self-respect. The transformation happened not despite losing my family, but because I finally stopped trying to earn love from people who were determined not to give it.